Tater pigs, oh yeah. They're gonna talk about sweet, sweet RPGs. And it's the Titterpigs, the RPG podcast. Am I getting paid for this one?
Hey listeners, welcome back to another episode of Titterpigs. This is episode 47. Scott, we are almost at the half-century mark. Holy shit, buddy.
I mean, they say that time goes faster as you get older, but it seems to be with Titterpigs approaching 50. Each episode seems like several months for some reason. But yeah.
We call that life. I'm telling you, the older we get and the further along in episodes we get, the busier our personal life gets.
It seems to be that way. You know, we're full of, great and fine intentions and ideas. And then, the fates hear that up in the, stratosphere and say, nuh-uh, not now.
Nope.
Maybe
we're going to dole out a little bit of life to you. Here's this little problem. Here's this little real life thing you got to deal with. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's last we got together was, the recap of 2024. We talked about all the things, well, not all the things, but, highlights of our year and whatnot. And Has
it really been an entire year since we got together?
Don't be pooky.
Bad dad joke.
But yeah, so we talked about good things, and 2024 was had some wonderful highlights, and then we rolled into 2025. So we're just going to see what have we been up to since the the turnover of the year. It's been a rather dull January, so I'm sure we don't have much to talk about. Well, that's for a different type of podcast. We're going to focus more on what have we been up to with regards to RPGs and games. So to kick it off, how about you, Keith? What have you been up to so far since we've last spoke?
Yeah, so since we last got in the studio and recorded, I've been kind of getting after a few things. I think the biggest rock to talk about, though, first and foremost, is for 2025, like my resolution kind of thing. I think I hinted at it when we talked about the end of year recap. Looking forward, I have started in on my deep dive of 3 different RPGs this year. Outcast Silver Raiders, Outgunned, and Twilight 2000. So those are my 3 big focus areas. So going to read them cover to cover, run them multiple times throughout the year. I don't think anything's going to be a campaign, but I'm going to run them in different ways, try to do different things with them, review them, kind of really peel back the layers of the onion on these different games. So I've started reading them in bits and pieces. I'm currently about halfway through Outgunned. Just barely finished the first book, The Player's Guide for Outcast Silver Raiders, which super easy to read and fast to get through. Of course, it's only like 60 pages, so it's not a hard read. Other than that, this month has been busy life-wise, work-wise. You and I both have a couple of irons in the fire.
Yes, we do.
Yep. So that's a little, listeners, that's a little teaser for you. We have some irons in the fire. We're not going to say any more, but we're working a few things for you and for us and for other people. That's enough said.
Yeah.
But more importantly, above anything else, I have done something I said I was never going to do. I broke down in our Wednesday gaming group. Scott knows because Scott's in the Wednesday gaming group.
Yeah.
And I played a game that I said I never wanted to play. I broke down and played Traveler.
Oh, you poor soul. How are you coping?
Well, at least my character doesn't have kennel cough.
Hey. Yeah, I mean, being involved in that game also. Yeah. I mean, I've got, not too large, but a bit of a track record with Traveler. I was playing it in a secondary campaign for a while, but I mean, I will still say I'm not a Traveler aficionado. Yes, thank you. But no, I mean, I have fun. I enjoy it, but I mean, I'm not like anti sci-fi like you are. So, but
I'm still not picking up the whole sci-fi thing. Yeah, so we've been on a space station, and we got on a space liner mining ship. I'm still not picking up the whole sci-fi vibe here, but
yeah.
Meh.
Well,
and by the way, everybody, this is the Mongoose 2nd edition, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for those who
this
may
isn't
be familiar,
the classic, really 70s. I don't know, whatever one that is.
I'm not familiar with the older version, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Mongoose version. I think it's vastly preferred by a lot of people, and they do a good job with what they're doing. And now being the official license holders, you will probably see a mix of stuff. I believe they announced that they're going to allow people to create for the old version, the original version, whatever you want to call it. So, you'll get the best of both worlds if you're a Traveler fan. But for those who are familiar with it, though, what we're being run through is the Mysteries at Arcturus Station is what Keith and I and the rest of the group are playing. So, it's
meh.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe
I'm not casting or laying down a determination or decision yet on do I like Traveler or don't I like Traveler.
Yeah.
I am playing it. We've played part 1. We've started into part 2. Once part 2 is done, I will make my determination. Now, it's like a murder mystery in space. I mean, I'm not feeling the whole like spacey sci-fi vibey here.
You need more pew pews and zoom zooms of spaceships, probably.
Maybe, and then I'll probably purely just hate it because it's all pew pews and zoom zooms. But hey, you know what? I'll figure that part out later. But that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to, man?
Well, let's see. Like you said, a couple things I've been doing. It involves you. So, the Traveler game, and of course the secret thing we can't talk about now, which has been fun, and looking forward to working further on the secret thing and finally getting to the conclusion of Traveler to get your final assessment. But that aside, I myself personally really haven't been much to.
I haven't foreshadowed my assessment yet.
I mean, there's some foreshadowing there, but maybe you never know. Your space heart might grow 3 sizes bigger by the end of it, but highly doubt it.
Yeah, I'm not feeling that.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that I recently posted a quick update on my YouTube channel, kind of clarifying that, hey, I haven't put anything out there in over 90 days, and how busy I've been with so many things, both personal and also revolving around the hobby. So it's the YouTube channel that I run is something almost like an adjacent hobby. It's for fun. It's something that I do because I want to share things that I enjoy within the hobby, but when it comes to other things, it falls down to the bottom of the priority list. And so just wanted to make sure that I was still there, still more stuff to come, and not a victim of this whatever this weird D&D YouTube's killing channel nonsense I keep seeing or reading about. But yeah, I mean I don't even have 2,000 subscribers. I'm not a blip on YouTube's radar, regardless of the situation with that. But other than that, just playing, continuing on with the the variety of games that I've been involved in. Continue on with the Enemy Within, the Warhammer campaign that I'm involved in, the Traveler game, started to pick that up again. Well, the Traveler game, the Traveler campaign I'm involved in, that's not with you guys on Wednesdays. And then let's see here. I don't know. It's you can tell that I've been doing a lot of other things besides stuff. I can't even nail it down.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
But there was
life.
Yeah, there was something else I was going to mention that I'm drawing a complete blank on. Oh yeah, I turned 51. So that I had a nice little birthday with the family. I did get a couple things for my birthday. I received an Amazon gift card, for my in-laws, and I used that to purchase Outgunned. So nice. I'm looking forward to reading that. and a couple other books. I did pick up the two-headed, two-tailed serpent, the Pulp Cthulhu campaign, and then also continuing on playtesting Bud's sequel to Viral Vermis. Really enjoying that. I'm looking forward to that finally coming out, and then also continuing on mentioning Bud, his ongoing campaign of God's Teeth, which is horrendous and just horrific, and everything that you want from a completely just wretched Delta Green campaign, and it's. And I'm not going to lie, but as horrible as it is, it's a great alternative to other things that are going on right now. So it's a bit of a release.
Yeah,
from
there you
other
go.
things. But
holy Christ!
But there's also one other thing that you and I have been up to recently after the holidays, and what was that?
I don't remember.
Well, it's probably in the title of the podcast, but you and I played in BSERCON, which we will be.
Oh yeah, well so like you, I've got like so many things going on. Like it's like, what the hell have I been doing? I keep forgetting like this, the obvious, right?
Right.
Yes. BSERCON.
Yes, but we'll be talking more details about that at the third part of the segment. But mentioning BSERCON, Keith and I started talking about things in regards to the tabletop RPG community, of which BSERCON has a wonderful affiliation with, and the things that that particular group of people do. In our next segment coming up shortly is we are going to touch base on certain things within the tabletop RPG community. Groups, resources, particular locations where you can go out and find like-minded people to not just talk about the hobby in general, but also specific games and groups within there where you can find these resources and people and answer questions in regards to how to run your game, or even resources to how to write and publish your game. So we'll be talking about that in our next segment.
And we will see you there.
All right, welcome back. We are here for the second segment of this episode, and we are going to be talking about communities and their resources, the things that various communities provide, where you can go to find a particular community to suit your tabletop RPG needs.
Mr. Carter.
Yes, sir.
Can I go to hell in a handbasket if I don't change my ways?
No.
Oh, okay, never mind. Back to you.
I
can't help myself. I'm sorry.
For those listening, I have no idea what he was talking about, but just laugh and carry on.
Oh my God.
So, in our last segment, we're going to be talking about the BSERCON that we played in, and likewise take a little reference into Jackals. But when Keith and I were talking about the particular subject of this podcast, the subject of communities came up, and we thought it would be a good idea to maybe highlight these things that where you can find these various resources, some good groups to check out, and where you can find them, and spotlight a couple wonderful corners of the hobby that really does a good job promoting positivity, unity within the hobby, either specifically towards a game or a group or all these wonderful things. So to kick it off, though, I'll go ahead and let Mr. Funny Man here go ahead and take the lead into the subject.
All right. So community has broad-reaching effects, right? Or broad appeal, I should say, not effects.
Yes.
So it means a lot of things, a lot of different things to a lot of people. So when Scott and I were kind of brainstorming, we kind of went off into our own little corners and decided, what does community mean to us? So I'm coming to the table with 5 things that are community to me, things that I find as part of my bit of the community where I go to hang out with people or I go to get resources. And I know Scott has his places that he likes and suggestions. And these we're bringing these to the table. This is not an all-inclusive list.
No.
These are just the things that each of us individually like. These are in our quick favorites in our browser, places that we go when we need information or specific resources that we thought you guys could benefit from. So we're going to kind of freewheel this. So for me, the first one is RPG Geek. I know I have mentioned it on other episodes in the past. This is, matter of fact, I think this is their 25th. They just celebrated their 25th anniversary of being a website. They are the internet's biggest database for both board games. It started as Board Game Geek, and then a number of years later, RPG Geek, one of its several sister sites, launched. On the RPG Geek side of the house, it's a great repository for those that aren't familiar with it, for finding information about role-playing games, the system or components of the system, supplemental books, core books, finding reviews, finding videos, supplemental material people have created and uploaded there or provided links to it. It's not as robust in terms of supplemental material and support material as, say, the Board Game Geek side of it is. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, but it's a place that I like. It's a place that I go. I will say I am a little biased. I am a volunteer admin over there. So, but it's a great place. I mean, it has its own community. And it has its own forums, its own presence on the various socials, and it's just a great place. Now, you want to play by post games? You can do that if that's your jam. It's got built-in dice rollers and all of the things to support that kind of play environment. You want to look for a game? You can find voice over IP, like we used to call it, but like online gameplay. You can. Looking for game type things are there. All of that stuff is there. So it's an active, robust, self-contained community that does have branches that go out in different directions within the hobby. So if you're not familiar with it, go check it out.
It's a fantastic site. As someone who, discovered it a few years ago, think, Keith might back me up on this. It can be a bit overwhelming.
Yes.
If if you're not familiar with it and you go there for the first time, it definitely leans towards a bit of for lack of a better term, a little bit slightly dated in its format for a website. But I couldn't think of any other way for it to essentially show you everything that it can do without stuff being lost. If you get my meaning on that, it's very helpful if you know someone who's familiar with it to maybe give you a bit of a guided tour to make you familiar with various aspects of it where you can find these things. But I mean, for the most part, if you're, if you've been on the internet for as long as it's been around, it shouldn't take too much. But it is great in everything that it does and it provides. And I mean, I'm still finding new stuff about it almost, every time I pop on there.
Yeah, I mean. And that's not even to mention you can catalog your own gaming collection there. I didn't even mention that. I mean, that's a whole thing unto itself. I mean,
yeah, no, it is. I've started doing that, but it like anything, it requires attention and organizational skills that I may lack at certain parts. So no, that is definitely a great one. And mind you, we're going to do our best to put links to these various things within the description. So. But RPG Geek is really easy to find. You put in RPG Geek, all one word, and it should take you right to it.
Yep. RPGgeek1word.com. It'll take you right there.
Do we want to trade off here, or do you want to?
Yeah, let's just trade off. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to highlight. It's not really a specific site, but and I know a lot of people will agree with me on this. As far as like he said, RPG community, in its broad sense, is one of those things where, I don't know, maybe I tend to be a bit more of a realist, I guess, for lack of a better term, but you'd like to think that there's an all-encompassing community, in regards that is tethered by what the hobby is, playing role-playing games. Now, That's not true. but there are specific corners that do exude that kind of presence, who are absolutely 100% there for the fans of their particular game, and likewise, the hobby in general, but who have done a tremendous job making themselves available in so many different ways to the gaming community, and that's Goodman Games. The Goodman Games community is one that I'm not familiar with it from day one, but it is definitely has a very sound, very supportive, exuberant, excited community that revolves around their particular game, Dungeon Crawl Classics, which you think would be enough. It's just there's wonderful rabid fans that are there for fans likewise, but the game itself also, or the company itself, also provides wonderful tools, for their community. They provide materials for judges to run their games, free starter kits to get people interested in the game. They've for the past couple of years, they've branched out into providing all sorts of information videos and things through their YouTube channel and their sub channels and whatnot. Likewise, they have a community on Discord. But it's just one of those things where they really go out of their way to actually provide a realistic sense of community. If you've ever gone to a convention and Goodman Games is representing there, you are instantly just drawn into this overwhelming, quirky, fantastic, funny, hilarious, and just passionate group of people that want nothing more than to share their joy.
It's like a sense of family,
and it just like I've said this before. Goodman Games are the tabletop RPG Grateful Dead, and their community are the Deadheads. Everywhere they go, it's a good time, and there's a sense of community wrapped around this love, Dungeon Crawl Classics and their other games, but just also the joy of just playing games together. They do a lot to maintain that and support that. And I just love the fact that, anyone new to Dungeon Crawl Classics, it's almost difficult not to, once you step into their orbit, not to be instantly just enthralled with what they provide, and also to their creatives who support and add third party aspects, to the games that they do. They really love the people who play, share, create, and operate and maintain their game in all their games in all facets. So. That's my initial throw in to the mix here.
So I'll bounce off of community, right? Sense of family and community that Goodman Games has, and I'll jump over to the Raspy Raven. And I think you may even have this one too on your list of offerings here. But the Raspy Raven is a Discord community. The individual runs a gym, does this fantastic job of bringing people together. He's built this wonderful Discord server, and he does like these little, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on the phrase he uses, but these,
spotlights?
No, not spotlights, but he does these short windows throughout the year, seasons of that focus on particular games. So it could be all Pelgrane Press stuff, or it could be Call of Cthulhu, or it could be some other particular game, or from a publisher or a specific game. He in the community promotes the living snot out of it. And they have it's open gaming in terms of people can sign up. Volunteers run the games. People can sign up. When they're full, they're full. But, until the day of, people drop out, people sign up, people drop out, people sign up. You know how it goes. But there's no cost involved to be part of the community. There's no cost involved to play these games. They're run by volunteers. The community's moderated by volunteers. I mean, it's just a wonderful, fun community to be part of that is nothing but talking about games and playing games. So if you haven't heard of Raspy Raven, we'll make sure we put a link to the server, to the Discord server in the show notes, because it's just a great great community to be part of.
No, I will second that wholeheartedly. And, the thing that I enjoy most about, this seasonal focus, if you're running a game, you're pretty much guaranteed to have people there who are legitimately interested in what the focus is, which makes running games for people in a online convention type sense easier, because you know that these people are there to experience this particular thing, whether it be for the first time or they just enjoy it. And it's not just, and again, nothing wrong with that, but it's just not people who are taste testing a bunch of stuff at a convention that, has, a tremendous amount of variety. So it's definitely a nice take. And again, as Keith said, no shortage of resources, on their Discord, involving, helping you run a game, suggestions for even, how to be good players. It's just, it just really ramped up, and it's become, quite a big force out there that, I may be talking out of my asshole here, but it's one of those things where, this kind of grassroots effort that it does, may come close to rivaling something like the Gauntlet in how it operates, and just how it just keeps growing and expanding and, drawing more people into it.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think you're talking out your ass. I think it's a tour de force in and of its own right. I mean, it's a wonderful community with wonderful people that have nothing but the best interests of the community,
right,
at heart. So, like I said, it's a tour de force unto itself. It's definitely different than other communities like the Gauntlet that focus heavily on, indie games and development of indie games. And they got their own focus. The Raspy Raven has a different focus, and that's okay. And it's going down its own path, and it's growing, but it's growing in a measured way, not crazy growth that's unmanageable. It's measured, it's sustainable. Every time it expands a little bit, like the server gets a little bit bigger, in terms of people, or a little bit more offerings in terms of, hey, we're adding this season. Game signups are going to start in 60 days for this. Please submit your games if you want to run something in this particular thing. This is the theme or the game or whatever it is. Everything's welcomed with open arms by everybody.
Yeah.
So, it's great.
Okay, well, with that, you bring up a good focus on things, as far as community tools, and of course you'd mention it, but I'll reference it again. Is Discord. If you're looking for a particular community, and again, when I say community, I mean a group of people that are coming together to discuss a variety of things. Discord can be both a blessing and, somewhat daunting at the same time. But there are plenty of good communities that are well organized, well managed, as far as, the administration is concerned, and, kind of keeping the, certain bad aspects or things from ruining this. But, Discord is, for the most part, one of the two areas where I go in regards to finding specific things, and there's no shortage of it. Some highlights in there, as you mentioned, are the Raspy Raven. There's the good friends of Jackson Elias. So you'll see a lot of very popular podcasts who, have opened up and offered this location for people to, talk about not just their podcasts, but the subjects that they reference, and the games that they may focus on. And likewise, it's also a place for people to play and run games. The Gauntlet, of course, is one that is very focused on that, and has been around for some time. But even like I mentioned, Goodman Games has theirs. So if you're looking to maybe gather together, like-minded people in regards to either just the hobby in general or something very specific, Discord is a great place to start with that, because it could be something as simple as just a place for people to meet and just talk and shoot the breeze regarding games like the Manchester Arms, or something that's all encompassing, like, the good friends of Jackson Elias, or the Grognard Files is another one that their community goes beyond, their particular focus of where they came from, whether it be a podcast, YouTube channel, or even the game itself that it's representing. At the end of the day, it's still a tool, and it can be as simple or as complicated as you want to make it. But it's definitely a force, out there for organizing and maintaining, conversing amongst those who, belong to a specific community or, a broader aspect of the hobby. So there.
So I just want to piggyback on that. I love Discord. I have a love-hate
don't get me
relationship
wrong.
with
I
it.
do too. Yes.
I do love Discord. There's lots of communities out there, and there are a lot of great communities. The problem with Discord is it's very hard to find them. They're all disparate communities in their own little spaces, right? Like Titter Pigs, Rolling Boxcars, we have our own little community, right? And then Raspy Ravens over here, we're here, good friends at Jackson Elias over here, and they're not all connected, and there's no real good way to search for them.
That's the problem.
That is the downfall to Discord, unfortunately. Now, if somebody knows of a great list of resources of Discord servers, kind of in the vein that we're talking about, hey, by all means, let us know, and we will share the shit out of that. I will even put it on Rolling Boxcars and promote the hell out of somebody else's list, and obviously give them credit for it, because that's an important thing. I want to kind of change gears here a little bit. We've been talking about places to go, right, that are community-centric. Now I want to provide some resources, right? I'm no longer a game collector, right? I'm not out there like hunting for rare treasures, but there are still people out there that do, right? So for you guys out there that are rare collectors of D&D, original D&D stuff, or early D&D stuff, if you're not aware of it, and I'm sure you already are, but for those that are not, or those that are new to collecting D&D stuff, the ACM website is like the central repository for early D&D, TSR era information. You want to know which printing of Isle of Dread you have? You go there and it will tell you. You can look through all of the various you look up X1, you can find all the information, all the little nuanced bits and pieces to determine if you have a first printing or a fourth printing. Same with all of it's for the modules, it's for the physical hardcover books, because certain printings had different trade dress. Different colored end papers signified different printings and different combinations of different things. And it will also tell you the rarity, modules, and books, and secondary and adjacent material. It is a great resource for those that are really into collecting TSR era D&D things, or if you happen to acquire some and you're just looking to move them on and sell them, you can get an idea of what it is you have. Now they do provide some pricing data, collector pricing data, and it tells you, depending on the various grading, they tell you what their grading criteria is, and they do some market analysis, and they tell you when the last time something sold for in a particular grade, so where they're getting their reference point from. Take it with a grain of salt, like anything else. It's worth what somebody's willing to pay, but they put little pins in the pricing and all of that, like this sold for $3,000 and that's what it's worth, and so on and so forth. But it's a good resource nonetheless, at least trying to identify what it is you have, which printing, and what it could be worth. In the end, it's a resource. Make use of it. If you didn't know it was there, now you do.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to piggyback off that piggyback.
Piggies!
On our
we are the Titter
piggyback?
Pigs.
Oh, hey. It's on brand. So yeah, I mean, another fine resource for looking for communities are Facebook groups, and Facebook groups can be just gaming focused, can be specific to the type of game, Call of Cthulhu, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Delta Green, whatever. But they also can focus on specific sections of the hobby. They can also be indie RPGs, OSR, specific type of genres and whatnot. And likewise, there's also a at least a couple, but a very popular and growing. If you are looking for specific treasures, there's the RPG auction site, which kind of falls in line with that. And, so the world is changing, and it's a lot quicker than a lot of us would like. And, social media is kind of taking a dip in popularity and whatnot. But, for those of you who still
dumpster fire.
Yeah. For those of you
Had a hairball.
who still maintain a presence, there is a bit of, light within the horribly gray thunderclouds that they've become. And you can still go in there and find, specific communities to associate with. And I'll give you this though. They're a lot easier to search for and find than Discord. Now, of course, they follow the typical Facebook format, and, finding something specific within a bunch of random posts, as far as, there's really little or no organization there. It's just a group for people just post whatever they want within the guidelines of the group. That could be a bit difficult, as far as if you're looking for something specific, but it's a good place to go if you want to highlight something, ask questions. Popular community resource, of course, is the Miskatonic Repository Creator Group that's by Alex.
No, I don't know that Alex. So Alex is a
one of the
frequent
admins.
flyer.
Yeah.
He's a frequent flyer, as are a number of folks. I'm not sure who the moderators are, the admins.
Right.
But
yeah, no, but it's full of people who, again, are focused on a specific, whatever the group's about. And, it's a great place to go and ask questions, whether it be, I need help with this, or I'm looking for that, or how do I do this, or can someone answer me that? And for the most part, just about everyone that I'm on or have been to, very little time whatsoever, you'll get some answers. Now, again, I think we should say a lot of these online resources and groups that we talk about, there's always going to be a bad egg, but don't let that dissuade you from going to these things. There's no avoiding that sometimes. This is the tabletop RPG hobby. No matter where you go, and how wonderfully managed and maintained any one of these groups can be, you will eventually get actually'd over something. So that's just a fact. It's a great place to go before the inevitability of maybe Facebook just going too far off the cliff for people to justify a presence on there. But for now,
actually, no, just kidding.
For now, teetering, as it's teetering over the edge, it still is a good resource if you're, if you're okay with that, and to go check it out. So
I'm gonna lump my last two together and roll them together because they're related. As game masters, we're always looking for audio clips, images to use for our locations, NPCs, all of that stuff. We can hunt the web and then potentially find what we're looking for, or you can go find the repositories of stuff. So I've got 3 different repositories that should meet your needs for most everything. So the first one is the BBC Sounds Archive. Royalty-free, hundreds, if not thousands, of audio clips, samples, samplings, everything that you could need. Just a plethora of stuff. And to go with that, there's also Pixabay and Pexels. Now, both of those 2 websites are images and audio. Now, one of them, and I think off the top of my head, I think it's Pexels. I don't have it up in front of me, so I can't verify, but I think it's Pexels. Also has audio and some video clips and sampling. And the audio is clips, some longer length, royalty-free audio tracks. It's almost like a ginormous sound archive as well. But both sites do offer thousands and thousands of pictures. They are royalty-free, attribution-free images. I use a lot of them on the blog for my header images, my lead images for articles and stuff. You don't have to credit the contributor. They ask that you do, but you don't have to. So if you are using it for your game, too easy. Absolutely too easy, especially because you're not using it in kind of a commercial environment.
Right.
So between the 2 websites, Pixabay and Pexels, tens of thousands of images. Modern images. You want something spooky. You need a train. You need an abandoned house. You need something in Europe. You need something in the U.S. I mean, you need whatever. You can find it. And then if you need to like scrub it through or run it through like an image editing program to like fuzz the image or do whatever you want to do to it because you're into that kind of thing, great. You do what you got to do with it. On the audio side of things, Pexel and then the BBC Sound Archive, you want all those creepy sound effects and all of that stuff. Both sites have you covered. Between the two of them, it's got you covered for coming and going. Right. So you can have all of those noises and sounds and all of that stuff triggered in there if you want to run with like API scripts on, say, Roll20 or what have you, doors creaking and all of that fun stuff. So
no, I use Pixabay just, for every one of our episodes. It's where I find our various intro music, and our sound effects and whatnot.
So it is Pixabay. Okay, I thought it was Pexels, but
yeah. Well, I mean, there's Pexels too, but
I think maybe they both offer it. I just
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you bring up a good point also because, regardless of how you feel in regards to, specifically things like AI art, you do a Google image search these days, it's becoming increasingly harder and harder to find something that isn't just, AI art itself, or it could be it. And again, I'm not here to debate, the morality or the pluses or minuses to that. But, there are times where if you're looking for something specific, you don't want to have to wade through all that bullshit because that's not what you're looking for. So repositories are going to be a very important aspect, as, again, things change and things that you personally may not like starts to become the norm and making it difficult for you to find the things that you want. I feel places such as these specific repositories, maintaining, the integrity of what they're offering is going to be an invaluable resource to find stuff like that if that's what you're looking for. So
absolutely,
yeah. So definitely bookmark those. And because again, it's the times they are a-changing. So yeah, I mean, there's no shortage of things. We could talk on and on, highlight things. I mean, as far as probably one of the more welcoming groups that I love to associate with is, not really specifically, but I love the UK gaming group and our UK friends. Nothing against our stateside friends, love them too, but just the exuberance that they have, for the hobby is just different.
It's something, all right.
Yeah, it's a different take. But all lovely people, and nothing highlights that more than the the podcast and the community that revolves around the Grognard Files. Dirk, is the captain of that particular community. And if you're not familiar with it, I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't, just because the name. There's a lot of people who might be a tad younger, who just see the name Grognard and they would go, ew, old grumpy neckbeards, but it's not. They embrace that name as a term of endearment. And that aside, it's not directly a focus of old school games, but it is, part of it. But it still, focuses on both new and old games. So
yeah.
The fact that they're still providing both a physical presence and an online presence, for the conventions that Dirk does, is a great sign that he definitely is one who loves and cares about the hobby and wants nothing more than to have others
take over the world.
Yes, well, that too. I mean,
game at a time.
We got to take a few Advil though before we do that, because most of us are of the old Grognard aspect. But yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to that too, as another great community that if you're not familiar with, don't let the name turn you away.
Please don't.
It is a wonderful group and wonderful community. Again, they have a Discord where they organize these things and people chat and talk on there. And if you get a chance to play in any of their online games, if you're not in the UK, don't hesitate to sign up for those things, because just the people that run it, the game varieties that they provide, no shortage of wonderful people to play and experience the RPGs with. Do you happen to have anything else to toss out there?
No, actually I don't.
Okay, then I think that brings us to one of our favorites as far as a particular community of people. They've been around for a long time. The BSlandia community, which was originally associated with the Gaming and BS podcast, which was headed by Sean and Brett. And unfortunately, the podcast is no more, but Sean has picked up that torch and carries it brilliantly as he maintains, his general philosophy of being a positive force within gaming. And with that, he does run an online convention called BSERCON. And we are going to be talking about our experience with BSERCON and focusing on the game that I ran there for Keith and others, Jackals.
So we will hit that up in the next segment. All right, we're back for our last segment of the show. Scott kind of preemptively warned you what we were going to talk about in the last segment, so we are here to talk about BSERCON. Scott and I both had the pleasure of attending this year. Scott, you had attended previously, but I had not.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a little bit about BSERCON. We mentioned it before, but BSERCON and likewise their community, BSlandia, run by Sean P. Kelly, who was the better half of the Gaming and BS podcast, which was hosted by himself and his.
Well, at least he had
friend.
the better hair.
Oh yeah, obviously, but his friend Brett, who had the better beard.
Fair.
And I apologize. I don't know Brett's last name, so. But you can find it. I'm sure you can Google it. But whatever the case may be, so after a very, very long and successful run, the podcast came to an end, and they went their separate ways, and but Sean continued to have a presence, an online presence. Sean started a YouTube channel where he discusses various topics, suggestions. Regarding
it was over industry news.
Industry news. Well, that's separate. So he does have a channel where it's just pre-recorded videos.
That's right. So I'm thinking the Saturday morning.
Yes. Yeah, Saturday morning
kind
chat.
Of thing, yeah.
And he also has that just about every Saturday morning. He pops online, covers gaming news, certain subjects. He'll have a topic of the day for people to discuss. It's a fun little way to start your morning, and he's got quite a following. Mind you, a majority of them, of course, have rolled over from the Gaming and BS podcast, but it is a wonderful group of tabletop RPG and likewise tabletop gaming enthusiasts, and the Discord is a wonderful place to be associated with. So. A couple of years ago, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that while they were still doing the podcast, they may have started an online convention that carried on after the split.
My understanding is because the podcast ended a little over a year ago, if I remember correctly, if I recall correctly,
maybe a little more. Yeah,
maybe 2 years ago now. But in the last year or two of the podcast, Sean and Brett, and then some other folks helping out. Right? It's not like a one or two man operation
show.
Here.
Yeah,
it's a team effort. Started BSERCON.
Mm-hmm.
It's in January. A very small charge. I think it's $5.
Yes.
I think it's been $5 the whole time the last 4 years because this was BSERCON4. Mm-hmm. And then some of the money from the admission goes to a charity, whatever charity he's designated for that year, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
But anyways, it started at kind of in the waning days of the podcast. It's carried forward post podcast days, and it's as strong as ever.
Yeah.
So
I would.
I had the opportunity to go this year, which was great. So
yeah.
Virtually, anyways.
There was no shortage of variety, which is always great to see at a convention, both in person and online. and it runs 3 days, all hours for the most part. So if no matter where you are within the world, you can definitely find a game to hop into. And it was a great experience. This is last year. I just played one game. I don't even remember what it was, but this year I played in 3 and ran 1 game.
Wow!
So
your schedule was packed. Mine was not as robust, but my personal schedule didn't allow for as much. I had a seminar, and then I had 3 games scheduled. The third game, I had to drop out of it the last minute because I had to go to urgent care because apparently I had a middle ear infection that was like on fire, and I could not sit there with like headphones on my ears. So I decided to go to the doctor to find out I had an ear infection. That was great. Yay me.
Wussy.
Yeah. Apparently I'd had it for like 2 weeks. It started like as like muscle pain, like in my neck and the side of my neck and stuff. And then manifested like as a burning pain in my ear. So yeah, that was fun. But I did manage to get 2 games in and then that seminar. So that was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun.
So we're going to talk briefly about some of the games, or all the stuff that we were involved in during the convention. But then we're going to talk a little bit about the one game that I ran, which was Jackals. Keith was a part of that game, and just give a bit of a more detailed assessment on it. Primarily focusing on the major draw of the system, which is called the class system. But we'll get to that shortly. So Keith, what was one of the first things that you joined in on at BSERCON?
One of the opening things in the opening time slot was a seminar that I attended, Dungeons and Data Tables. So those, I'm a nerd. I am. I'm a nerd. I love data. I love Excel. I love Power BI. I'm not a data scientist. I'm not a data analyst, but I pretend to be one at work. And
you're an anal something.
Shush. So I decided to take the opportunity to see if I could learn something new. It was pitched as, Excel and using Excel to build online character sheets, or not online character sheets, but like Excel or, Google Sheets, character sheets, dashboards.
Okay.
We didn't get to the dashboards portion because it kind of ran long and he had to cut it off.
Okay.
There was a lot of good information conveyed. I was already pretty well versed in a lot of it, but there was some good tips and tricks and reminders even for me, especially like naming ranges and setting up like a sheet that was just your data tables so that you in naming the ranges and then calling on those to automate some of your functions for your character sheet. So like if you want to have if you're making a multifunction character sheet and you want to pick a class, you have it. You can set it up to be a drop down, and just simple things like that. So if somebody doesn't have to type in what their class is, they can just hit the little button. It's a drop down. Boop, picks the drop. Picks it. I can't talk today, and you can further automate it then by if they pick that, then some other things start to populate. If you want to get even fancier.
Right.
And those kind of conversations were part of this seminar. The individual, Jim, who hosted the seminar, provided everybody with a link to the slides and sample data tables for us to tinker with after. And I really enjoyed it.
Cool.
Get my geek on.
Cool.
So
that's
what I did in the first time slot.
Okay. What'd you do? For those listeners who have fallen asleep, please wake back up.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. But yeah. So I didn't do. I think it was the only seminar. But if there was others, I didn't do any of those. But
I think it was the only one.
Okay. But so I played in a variety of games. First one that I played in was Lex Arcana. And
how was that?
Are you familiar with the game?
Except for the fact that you bought me the book a couple of years ago, I haven't looked at it.
I don't even, my son's birthday could be tomorrow and I'm not going to remember. I'm so scatterbrained at the moment, but yes. But so anyway, so Lex Arcana essentially is a fantasy version of the Roman Empire with the hypothetical situation of it didn't fall. if I'm not mistaken. Correct me on anything if I'm wrong, but that's kind of in a nutshell. There is magic in this world that primarily revolves around visions and interpretations of communications with the gods. I know there's other things, but we really didn't get a lot into it. This is a convention, so it's a one shot. Okay. But for the most part, the system itself seemed fairly intuitive. The setting itself sounds like a lot of fun. So you're essentially playing custos, wardens for the emperor, and you go out to study. This is from its basic description: arcane lore, investigative forbidden cults, and face the threat posed by dangerous supernatural creatures. So, kind of your standard adventuring thing, but I assume it's fairly in depth as far as the setting, because there's no shortage of books for it.
Oh my God, there is not a shortage of books. There are tons and tons of books.
Right, and it's published by one of my favorite third-party 5e publishers, Archeron Games, who does Broncolonia. So obviously they're steeped within that Italian Roman culture. So it's coming from a good source.
I would hope so. It's an Italian company.
Like I said, it was a fine adventure. It was a fine taste. It interested me enough to I was actually going to order, but I realized myself I also have a copy to pull it off the shelf and give it.
Hey, Scott, can I suggest a resource? If you would put your collection in RPGgeek.com, you would know what books you have.
That's fine, but I would probably accidentally put it in as Lex Luthor and never find it again. So
fair.
Okay. But
moving on.
I don't have anything bad to say about it. It definitely needs a longer read. The only little complaint that I had with the system itself is the descriptions of everything within the game. Your attributes, your abilities, your skills. Everything is in a version of Latin. Which, if you're familiar with the book, and you played it for a certain amount of time, you can associate, what these things mean. But it would be helpful if they had like the English definition of what these things are until you become familiar with it, because there was a lot of what do I do with this? What do I do with that? So
I could see that.
So, but that, again, it did what I expect most con games to do. Did I walk away more interested in it than I was when I came in to play it? And it did. So
okay,
yeah,
that's fair. I did. I had the same experience with the outside of Jackals, because that's the game we're going to talk about last. Cause
right.
Obviously, you ran it. I played it.
Yeah.
But the only other game that I played was Dialect, and I did walk away with that same kind of impression. Right. Like I want to explore it some more. So Dialect. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Some listeners may or may not be. But I picked it up a couple of years ago, skimmed it, put it on the shelf, haven't touched it. Always have an interest in it, and this is finally the time I got a chance to actually play it. Mm-hmm. But for those that don't know, it's a story game from Thorny Games. It's about an isolated community and its language that's destined to die. Not the community, the language. The language is going to die out by the end of the game and fade away into nothingness. It's an interesting game. There was 4 of us, and the facilitator was a player as well. It played okay in a virtual tabletop environment. Mm-hmm. Now, we were all a bunch of chatty Cathys, like super involved in developing the story structure and the community. And our community was all about like 1982 isolationism. We decided in 1982 what was happening, all of these different political things, the Satanic Panic. So we jumped on, hey, we're a bunch of gamers in the Satanic Panic era. Mm-hmm. We were a bunch of runaway teens, this enclave of 200 like teens that had all congregated and run away. Right. And that was the premise of our community. And by the end of it, the time had advanced 20, 30 years, almost 30 years from that time. Mm-hmm. And technology had infiltrated and all of this stuff, and the community had broken up and our language had died. But through the process of playing, you create new words. And you have these little vignette scenes in which the scenes are framed by cards that you use as prompts. And
Right.
then within those little framed scenes, you create a word, you use that word within that scene, and then those words are written down with a quick little short definition, and they're on the tabletop. It would have been easier if we were in person versus a virtual tabletop. As reminders, because you can use them again throughout play. In other scenes, you can bring up those words.
Okay.
I'll give one example. We had a word called rel, R''ELL. In gaming parlance, that was our word for a shortened word for a greeting called for roll well, rel.
Okay.
Because we were gamers, right? That was kind of our theme. And one of the players said their theme to come up with a word was a greeting. And they created the word rel.
Okay.
To mean roll well. And that was the word that they created. And we kept interjecting it in other scenes whenever like a greeting, two characters met in a scene, they would say rel. And that was the word. I mean, seems really weird and kind of silly, but that's what the game's about, creating language. And then by the end of the game, the community dissolves. For some reason or another, it dissolves or physically dies off. It can be a very tragic game too.
Okay.
But then as a result, that language dies off.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Hence the dying of the language.
Wow. Now, if that could...
Because our community dissolved into back into regular society, the normies.
Yeah.
And as a result, our language died because of that.
Oh, okay.
So...
Well, if that could happen with the Skibbity toilet movement, I would...
That would be fantastic.
Appreciate it. So that sounds great. That sounds like that's one of those games where it sounds like it's with enough time, it's kind of like a perfect con game. Maybe.
So the facilitator running it had run it numerous times at cons, and one of the other players was also somebody who has run it numerous times at cons.
Okay.
And they both agreed that the average running time was 2.5 to 3.5 hours. We ran long at about 3.5 hours, and we were compressing some of the things.
Okay.
Just to kind of make sure we could fit it in. But again, I said we were chatty Cathy's, and we were all very
into it.
And things were running long because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say this is not a game. It's not a game for everybody.
Right.
You have to like story games so far as you have to like improv. You have to want to and enjoy like coming up with framing a scene. Like you have a prompt, and then you have to define what a scene looks like, and then initiate the scene. The scene's played out over a couple of minutes, and it's all improv, and then the scene stops. That's it. It's not this big, long 15, 20-minute dialogue. It's 1 to 3, maybe 4 minutes, done.
Okay. Oop. So, and, it also sounds like not only do you need to appreciate, storytelling type games, but also have self-awareness enough not to take the ball and run with it, because that can be a lot of issues with we'll say some people who like to perform.
You can also suffer from analysis paralysis, going,
True.
What word do I create? What card do I play? Because you have a couple of cards in your hand, and that's kind of the prompts you work with, and then it's like, you have to kind of think a turn ahead, like, what am I going to do? What should I do? But you kind of have to wait till other people have done their things, because that can change what you might want to do. Right. So... got to think on your toes. That's why I said it's not necessarily a game for everybody. Most people can jump right in and feel comfortable, but if you're a skittish player, or you're that person that wants to be a wallflower and never have the spotlight on them, probably not a game for you.
Sure, those perfectly fine. Games don't necessarily have to be for everyone. So Well, before I move on to my next game, I just want to jump back slightly regarding Lex Arcana. And just kind of highlight one of the things that I was kind of having trouble recalling. But so the magic system, focuses primarily on aspects of divination. So several different types of divination occur within the game, and what these particular spells or divinations or communications with the gods allow you to do is either predict, change, or do certain things to modify the outcome of the scenario. So just wanted to kind of like throw that out there in regards to that aspect. So a lot of times it'd be like, asking the gods, what's going to happen next? Or, and if you succeed, you get to narrate, the particular scene in regards to that. So just I would feel, remiss if I didn't do that, just go, oh yeah, there's this is kind of like a highlight of it. So I played a game called We Deal in Lead. It's a game. It's like a post-apocalyptic Weird West. Not unlike the Dark Tower. If you're familiar with Stephen King's books, and so it's guns. It's Wild West, and there's also the a bit of King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table feel to it. You belong to a particular order of the gun, so to speak, right. And it's based upon the cairn system. Okay. But Hobbes, from the Hobbes and Friends show.
Oh, I thought you meant Calvin and Hobbes.
No.
No, I know.
But
smart ass.
We use most of the system, but he didn't like the combat system, so he did one of his own.
Okay.
Modified, worked out fine. Nothing wrong with it. But of course, the impression is going to be not on the game itself, but at that moment of of the modification of the game. And so it's also one of those where I picked up a copy of it, gonna take a look at it just to see the game and it as its whole. It seems to be a very simple-esque system because Cairn itself is relatively simple, but there's a lot of meat to it regarding the setting and how it functions within this Dark Tower post-apocalyptic world. But the scenario itself was great fun. We needed to find one of our order. In this Wild West scene, there was a bit of exploration, a bit of investigation, a bit of realization of backstabbing, and things such as that. So I ultimately one of our order that we were looking for. He ended up being responsible for the death of the head of our order, and one of the players was connected to him. Well, mine was a self-righteous religious zealot who felt, this one failed the order, so there was a bit of a showdown between me and the other character, and me shooting the wounded one of our order who essentially killed the head. So that made for a bit of fun drama. No feelings were hurt. No, nothing personal taken. But it ended up being a fun game. But I'm a sucker for Weird West. I love my Weird West games, and this one, it definitely falls within that category of this seems cool. It's not just another rehash of Deadlands. So, so
that's good.
Yeah, looking forward to doing it more and maybe doing something with it, to explore it more. So
fantabulous.
So before we get into Jackals, there's the last game that I played, which is Cold City. Are you familiar? Are you familiar with this game?
Vaguely. It's on my radar to try to play someday. I know it's espionage thriller. That's about it.
Right.
60s, 70s.
So, well, essentially it's 1950s. So 1950s.
Okay, so see, I'm wrong.
1950s Berlin. The wall's up, and the Cold War is raging on, and you play, for a agency that incorporates agents from four of the powers who are currently in control of Berlin. The U.S., the French, the UK, and Russia. And essentially what your jobs are is, through, the unity of this group, you are going out and seeking out to either capture, destroy, eliminate these weird supernatural aspects, machines, creatures that were essentially brought about from the German Nazi regime. Essentially, these are holdouts. These are things that they were working to obtain to utilize within the war, but after the war ended, and they just essentially packed up and left, all this shit was left behind. So it's kind of Delta Greenish in a way, but the cool aspect of the game it involves a sliding scale of trust mechanic.
Okay.
That will move up and down depending on the actions of each one of you from scene to scene, and it also opens up opportunities for you to pursue both the overt and your character's hidden agenda that no one else knows about.
Interesting.
And depending on the roles, it's a massive dice pool system. Depending on what you're selecting, between the various options in there, you have the option of doing things solo, or doing things as a group. Depending on your roles, whoever rolls the best gets to narrate the scene. So if you are from Mother Russia and you're not doing things as a group, you roll separately and you roll the best, you get to narrate the scene, which sometimes involves backstabbing the other three characters there and vice versa. And so it opens up opportunity of, player versus player friction. And it just keeps building and building. And, I used to trust, the gent from France or whatever, but now I don't because of what they did the last scene. But now, the person I now believe the person from Russia is my friend, but then come to find out he's not. So these various sliding scales that can reflect your roles change throughout the game. Great fun. Great fun. And I know I'm not doing it justice in its full description, but that's my recollection based on it. But there's a new version coming out. I know that the author of the game, Malcolm Craig, has been sharing it on either a blog or a website or something for some time now, like kind of piecemeal. And apparently it's to the point where now a Kickstarter or crowdfunding or something is going to be coming soon for the new version of Cold City and also its sister game, Cold City Hot War. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it was just great fun. If you're not into player conflicts, this is
probably not going to like it.
Not going to be the game for you whatsoever.
See, I think that would be cool as long as it doesn't turn into literally like a PvP video game kind of environment.
No.
Okay.
No.
That would be my concern.
Yeah, simply because it's one of those things where player conflict doesn't necessarily involve combat, so to speak, but it's an espionage game. I mean, you're trying to forward the agenda of the organization that you belong to as a group, but also forward the agenda of the country that you belong to, who says that paranormal thing that the agency told you to destroy. Well, we really would like it to examine as a source of power in our country. So if you can do something,
what are you doing on behalf of your country? Versus agency. Yeah, no, I get it. And I like it. I like that idea.
Yeah.
So
that was Cold City. Fantastically run, fantastic game, and great players to play with. And just before I move on to Jackals, just want to say every game that I played out was masterfully run by the various game masters involved. So they all did an excellent job, and the people I played with were likewise wonderful, except you and Jackals. But we'll get to that now.
Yeah, let's talk about Jackals.
Okay.
So Scott ran Jackals for myself and some others, obviously. I'll let Scott kind of define what the game is, but I will just kind of put this out there up front. It was an interesting game.
Yes.
RuneQuest, it is not. I will just put that out there and just kind of squash that right up front.
Yeah.
So take it away, Scott.
So Jackals, Bronze Age, sword and sandal, sword and sorcery, role playing in a game that is not unlike a mythic version of our own. Taking inspiration from things such as the Iliad, Gilgamesh, Old Testament, that kind of thing. And you live in a world that used to be held captive by some horrible creatures. Humanity was oppressed. They broke the shackles, and now you're part of this particular group of people who are now moving within the world once again, resettling themselves, establishing themselves, and also interacting with other people within the world who now you can associate with, but with the ever-present threat of the oppressors there in the background, looking to regain their hold and power within the world, but also the typical human aspect of various countries and nations being who they are, either for or against whatever the other country's agendas may be. So. But that's not so much a concern of yours because you play a group of jackals. So the jackals are essentially outside of society, adventurers, explorers, scavengers, who move from place to place, essentially making a living for themselves, and establishing themselves as sellswords to various factions within these nations. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, the baseline is it's nothing new. I mean, in regards to your group of adventurers, the setting itself, the Zaharets, it's definitely weaves a solid structure. We didn't touch on it too much because it's a con game, but within the setting, there's no shortage of lore within it. It's very realized. There's definite differences between I believe the 4 different associated groups that you can make characters for. Magic is realized within this world in various degrees. So I mean, it's a solid sword and sandals, sword and sorcery type setting.
Right. Mechanically speaking, as a player, because I don't know all the lore and all that, obviously.
Yeah,
I didn't
and that's
read it, but
that's fine.
Mechanically, and I kind of threw out the whole preemptive statement that this wasn't RuneQuest.
That's fine.
And I did that for a reason. So for listeners, let me tell you why I did that. So as Scott was kind of giving us a rundown of some of the basic mechanics. Okay, so it's it's a percentile D100 base game.
Yes, rolled under.
And it's equal to or under. Critical successes or critical failures are doubles. Either above or below your skill rating, those types of things. So again, like mechanically kind of like RuneQuest, but not. The mechanics, the base mechanics felt more akin to Delta Green than they did to RuneQuest. That's why I threw that kind of statement out there in the beginning.
Sure.
Now, setting-wise, it did have, as somebody who has played RuneQuest a little bit, it did have some kind of basic commonality, right? The Bronze Age vibe thing going on.
Yes.
The magic originates from deity, this pantheon, and the pantheon is very integral to the setting, is what I could tell from my character and a little bit of write up on my character sheet. So it has some of that commonality. So there's it almost feels like they took a little bit from RuneQuest, some inspiration from RuneQuest and some inspiration from real history, ancient history, and then some of the better mechanics from like Delta Green and some of the generic D100 mechanics, and kind of just threw it all in a blender and spun it all together, and here we go.
Right.
But then there was some weird mechanics.
Yes.
Let's talk about those.
Yes. So there's attributes and skills within the game, and also certain traits that allow you pluses, to certain roles depending what they're associated with. So again, some commonality. But what really changes the game is, how the combat, the basics and likewise the combat of what is termed the clash system within the game. So the clash system is interesting. On a basic level, right, before you get into combat, it pretty much functions just like any other, percentile skill-based game. I believe this game is based on the open quest system, or at least borrows from it. So so something, you want to do something, roll, add or under, critical success, critical failure, you succeed. Opposed rolls function like they normally would also, but not in regards to combat, or at least to a degree. And of course, one of the things that roll once per scene, and there's aspects in the game called fate points. So the fate points, very similar to things such as
they're like bennies.
Yeah, bennies, luck. And they affect certain things and functions within the game. But then you get into combat. So, so combat uses a two-step system in regards to how you essentially take damage within the game. And by damage, I mean physical damage and also, I guess, for lack of a better term, exhaustion. So the Jackals have what's called metal, METTLE. And the metal is associated with valor. And valor is a tiered system that affects you first when anyone succeeds in damaging you before you take physical wounds. So
it's a convoluted way of saying you can soak off damage.
Yes.
Like in old school games, especially if you're familiar with like old tabletop board war games.
Okay.
Soak off damage. That's really what it boils down to.
Right.
And it was a pain in the ass. I'm just cutting right to the chase, man.
That's
Otherwise,
fine.
We'll be dancing around this thing for 30 fucking minutes.
No. That's fine.
It was a pain in the fucking ass.
I will say it was one of those things where, I had to read it a couple times to make sure, am I doing this correctly? So beginning of combat, you set your valor points depending on what your current metal score is. Now, your metal score descends due to certain things, wounds, heal. If you heal, it goes up and down, that kind of thing. Initiative is done. Morale is normal. Combat rounds, but the actual actions of attacks. And so when you actually attack each other, it's not your standard, I'm just going to do an opposed roll. They're going to roll a D100. I'm going to roll a D100 to either block or dodge. You have a commodity called clash points. And what clash points are, they renew every round, but it's a certain number of points that you have based on your attributes or certain things within your character sheet that you can spend to oppose anything. If somebody attacks you and you don't spend any clash points, as long as their roll succeeds, they automatically hit you.
Right.
So what clash does is the clash system, if someone attacks Keith, let's say he has 4 points, it costs 1 point to fight back. Hence you're clashing. So you're not necessarily dodging, you are entering into a clash. So then the opposed rolls begin. And depending on whose attack roll is more successful, or is there ties, is there certain things?
Yeah, but success is not what you think it is. Success becomes a blackjack game.
Right.
Right. So if, let's say Scott is attacking me, I spend my last remaining clash point to fight back. Kind of like you would in Call of Cthulhu, I'm going to fight back.
Right.
So Scott and I enter this clash. His character and my character enter this clash. Mm-hmm. So I now roll my attack skill, my melee, whatever I'm doing, right? Whatever bonuses I get to it, I roll. And then we compare, but my roll is a success. His roll is a success. Now we look at how close are we both to our skill number. Correct. The highest without going over is the winner,
right,
of that clash. It's blackjack.
Right. And so depending on where you are in the initiative order, and so if you spend, there's various degrees of clash points, you can spend it on. You can spend one, you can spend them all, during attack to accelerate the outcomes of your rolls. But, if you're if the enemies are last in the initiative order and you've something happens to you where you've spent all your clash points and you don't have any clash points left, and they make their rolls. Now, what's interesting is combatants against you, it's not just a straight roll and you roll damage. Combatants have different tiers of specific outcomes for their attacks. Not unlike if you're familiar with the Aliens RPG, where there's, depending on, what you roll determines if they just scratch you or if they rip you in half and suck out your insides. So, and it's great because it's a cool little narrative. It really helps individualize the various creatures and people that have in the game. And it's based on their role. So, if they need, let's say their combat skill is 50, so 01 to 10% does this, 11 to whatever does this, so on up into write their number. Within that aspect, depending on what it is, some allow you to do what is an actual dodge. For example, a giant worm nearly fell on Keith, but within the description of the attack says they can make a dodge roll to move out of the way. But what's not clear is there's really nothing in there that states you need to have clash points to do this. So it's like the way I read it was, so dodge is essentially like a saving throw.
Which would make sense.
Yeah.
Because it's what the description piece said that, so then it should be allowed.
It didn't say spend one clash point to dodge. Even though if somebody shot an arrow at Keith could spend 1 point to, or however many points to dodge that arrow, other than, whatever else he was wanting to do for his particular action. That's his decision. Right. So it's kind of a little iffy in that, but yeah. So there's this constant, bartering in exchange, and having to be aware of where you are specifically within the initiative to know, should I or should I not spend these clash points depending on who's going to freaking attack me? Because if I don't have any clash points, I can't fight back, and if they succeed with the hit, as we progress through the game. I think what happened was the first little encounter I did for you guys to kind of give you a taste of the combat system. You guys just, barreled through it, and maybe it gave a bit of a false.
It gave us a false sense of security.
But there was an instance near the end where, they were being slammed for 30, 40 points of damage, just going right through their valor. And getting wounds. So it could be a very, very deadly system based on how you're portioning out these clash points. Now, to be fair, the clash points refresh every round. Yeah. And initiative stays the same every round. So after you get through the first round, you kind of have a base idea of where you need to spend and maybe not spend those points. But again, it also depends on the success of your rolls. So interesting, but I don't know. So you said what again?
So I don't know. I thought the system was just a pain in the ass. Okay. Right. It was clunky. Okay. Now it did get a little bit smoother the more we did it.
Right.
But having to go through the Valor and then into soaking off through the Valor to get to physical damage. Mm-hmm. Not to mention armor ate up some of the points too. And so everything seemed like it could have been more streamlined. Mechanically could have been more streamlined.
A bit of bookkeeping, I guess.
Yeah. Felt unnecessary.
Right.
And I didn't mind the clash points. Mm-hmm. I don't mind an in-game economy and the fate points. The fate point, that was fine. Right. But going back to the Valor thing, because each combat round, if you have less than your normal Valor for some reason, you have to recalculate it. Mm-hmm. And then you have to recalculate what the total points are that you can, for soaking off, what you can absorb before it goes into physical damage. And it's just more bookkeeping that just felt unnecessary. Magic, I know we didn't touch on Magic, and I know we're running long in this segment. Yeah. Magic felt a little wonky too, because it's using another set of points, not your clash points, but
both. Yeah,
it's using clash and another
devotion points.
It's using both.
Yeah,
and in-game economic systems, clash and devotion points are being chewed up, and you have to make in-game real-world decisions. Do I cast magic, or do I hold my points so I can fight back? And which is great, but it can potentially become problematic. Not necessarily in a bad way.
No. I mean,
So,
yeah.
If I had to choose to like decide right now if I wanted to like play the game again or not play the game again, based off of just like the combat system,
Right.
And its heavy like mental bookkeeping, I would say no. I don't have time for that silly shit in my life right now.
Got it. Okay. I mean, and you know, from a GM's perspective, I do. I mean, I'm going to at a certain point, maybe once my schedule kind of gets a little bit more open. A lot of people wanted to try this game out, so I may just offer up a one shot or two for the BSlandia group, because they have an open table channel where you offer up games, and I could see, well, this is true of any game. Enough people spend enough time with it, it's going to become second nature. But yeah, things like the dual economy for Magic, devotion points. You only spend class points when you're in combat, but if you cast a particular spell that lasts until you dispel it, it holds your devotion points in flux, and so you got to make sure you track that appropriately. And then when you release a spell, you do something, it pulls it back in. And so,
right.
I mean,
and I might be an outlier on my thoughts about the game.
Yeah.
And I may decide, okay, cool, I want to play it again, a different scenario, and may have a completely different play experience and a different opinion at the end of it. But right now, I just felt it was too much work when it came to combat. Like the return on investment just wasn't there.
Right. Got it.
Yeah.
No problem.
It wasn't quite Rollmaster, but
no. But no, I mean, and again, as someone who ran it, I had to go on to Osprey's site, they've on their Discord, and ask a couple questions of like, and look some stuff up. I'm like, am I doing this right? Am I reading this correctly?
Yeah. Wow.
Coupled with the fact that, by no means is this, the guide to Glorantha, but there is a deep, rich world that you want to present. But again, it can be a lot to tackle within a lot of things. But it's must be popular because it's one of the, I think it is the best supported RPG at Osprey, with 2 other books and maybe one more on the way. A lot of Osprey's RPGs are one and done, and they move on to something else.
Yeah, they're one shots for the most part, in terms of books.
But from my perspective, I enjoyed running it. The scenario itself was decent for a starter. They come with 3. But the actual scenario you could pick up and put into Glorantha, and you wouldn't tell the difference for the most part.
Okay.
There's worse games out there. Is my
absolutely.
opinion. But if I was stuck on a desert island and my choice was RuneQuest or Jackals, I would definitely stick with RuneQuest, and that's not a slight against Jackals. Now that I understand it better and had fun, but again, maybe run it a couple more times just to see how it goes. Would I run a campaign with this? Not right now. There's more games. There's other games out there that I would much rather play that would hold my interest a lot longer than this.
Fair.
But
that's fair.
But it is a good game. It's just, I do agree that some of the economy, the economy within the game is a bit slippery. So
okay, right. Fair assessment. So I think that wraps up our discussion about BSERCON, our games, Scott's game in particular, Jackals, and our bitches, gripes, complaints, and love letter to Jackals.
Yes.
So I think with that, Scott, I think we have gone a lot longer than we had intended, and I think it's time for us to ride off into the sunset.
Shit, I got a load in the dryer. I got to get out.
Damn. Get back to housekeeping. And with that, everybody, we are out of here. See you in episode 48. Titterpigs fam, just a quick reminder, we do have our Patreon going on. It's patreon.com/titterpigs. You can show your support there. We have 2 tiers for you, a $3 and a $6 tier, so show us some love and be part of our growing community.
And speaking of our community, I'd like to thank each and every one of our wonderful patrons that help keep this podcast rolling. Happy gaming to one and all.